Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm James. Now the purpose of today's video is to give an update on the Ballast Vacuum system, and there have been some changes and some developments, so I thought we'd spend a little bit of time just talking about what those might be. Now I shall put up on screen some footage of the Ballast Vacuum system in use, and hopefully these video clips, which I have shown before, give you some idea of what this system does. The idea of it is simply to produce a level finished surface for your ballast laying prior to gluing it down. Now there are all sorts of wonderful inventions you can get for laying the ballast, the little Prozis style slide along boxes and what have you. This product really is all about the cleanup, and as I've demonstrated in my videos before, you don't actually need one of those boxes. You could shove the ballast on with a shovel if you wanted to. It doesn't have to be laid neatly at all. The purpose of this is to neaten it up and do the finishing work for you. Anyway, I won't do another demonstration of it today. I think by now most people know what it does. But I'll just show you some of the developments. So this is the original sort of components. There's a collector head. Oh, sorry, this is the collector head, and this is the separator cap. Now I'll talk briefly about this separator cap. Those of you with a good memory may recall my very first prototype. This one is a bit battle damaged, and to this day this is the best iteration of this product. It's essentially a Cyclone Separator, and I spent quite a bit of time on the computer refining the design of this. I used CFD to sort of optimize this, just as I did to optimize this piece, and it really does work a treat. The problem with it is it's just too big. Now if I 3D print these myself, they'd just take too long. I did look at putting this on Shapeways, but Shapeways want £90 to print it. Now I think it's worth 90 quid, but nobody else would. So that's sort of a non-starter, so I had to look for a way to basically get the same effect as this, but in a cheaper fashion. Now I always intended that I would sort of give this idea away, and I contacted, as I've mentioned before, some manufacturers, and nobody was interested in the idea. I thought I might be able to give the drawings away and sort of, you know, it would be professionally produced. Well, that wasn't to be, so I've had to do the development work myself. And the sort of the iteration from that big separator cap, there was a couple of other sort of variations that I went through, but in the end I've opted for this, which is a much simpler device. And you may recall, excuse me a second, that's designed to screw onto the lid of a sort of a fizzy pop bottle. Now it needs to be a bottle from a carbonated drink. This could go on to sort of like a mineral water bottle, but the carbonated drinks bottles are stronger. If you put this onto a mineral water bottle, the bottle will just crush. So that is designed to screw onto there, and then we would have a pipe from this piece, which is the inlet, onto our collector head, and from here, which is the outlet, to our vacuum cleaner. And it's the connection to the vacuum cleaner that creates the next problem, which I'll talk through now. Now when people purchase one of my ballast vacuums, I recommend they also purchase this kit of parts. Now this is available from Amazon, and it's a mini vacuum cleaner accessory kit, and there's sort of two reasons why I recommend they purchase this. And the main one is this piece. Now this is the connector that goes onto your vacuum cleaner. Your vacuum cleaner pipe would go in the end there, and it provides us with a convenient outlet nozzle which we can use to connect to the separator cap. Now there is a hose supplied in the kit that would do that, but what I recommend is, let's put this out of the way for a second, I recommend using just a piece of 10mm internal diameter PVC pipe. That will push onto the end of there, like so, and then this end will push onto the separator cap. Now the diameter of these bosses on here are 12 millimeters. So the PVC pipe needs to stretch a little bit, and if you have a job squeezing that onto there, then a bit of hot water will soften it up and it will slide on a treat. So that's how I would recommend connecting that. Now I recommend also using the piece of hose supplied in the kit for the connection to the collector head, and this is why. So if I pop that onto there, okay, you'll see that the boss on here, the connection on here is a 10 millimeter diameter. I think it's 10.2 actually. It's less than here, and the reason is that will push into, no it doesn't, sorry, that doesn't go into there. The reason why I recommend it is because we can use some of the accessory connectors that are in the kit. Now one of those accessory connectors is bent at 45 degrees, and I've permanently fitted one of my prototypes onto here, but that makes for quite a handy angle on which to actually operate the gadget. Now the reason why I recommend doing it all in this way is because we can replace the collector head and we could use some of the other accessories from the kit. So for example, we've got a little crevice tool here which is really great for getting in between the blades of turnouts or things like that. And of course it's got the advantage that it's all running through the collector head, so it's collecting anything that you're vacuuming up, so no material is wasted. There's the handy brush, useful for track cleaning, and again the debris is all being collected in our connection onto our pop bottle. So that's why I recommend doing it in that way. There's another little circular brush, might even be useful for vacuuming the underframe of locomotives and things. Now this setup in this way, there's the additional expense of this vacuum kit, which I think is about £7. It's not that expensive, but you get all of the benefit of these other devices. Now why don't I simply 3D print my own version of that, and then supply that. Let's take this apart again, clear the bench. I could supply those three pieces all as 3D prints, and yes, I certainly could do. The trouble is this becomes quite a big and bulky thing, and so it's a slow print and I can't get many of them in the printer at once. So this piece is going to be on its own costing almost as much as the vacuum kit that I've just suggested, but without any of the additional utility. So that's why it's all designed how it is, and that's why these two diameters don't match, but that the system does work. So I've had two people actually, and somebody asked me yesterday why these didn't match, and that's precisely why. So you can use this accessory kit. Now that's all well and good, but there have been some developments. So I had a comment from one of the viewers who couldn't find a fizzy pop bottle, and he was keen to get on with what he was doing, so he got a bucket and he cut a hole in the bucket and sort of glued this on top of the hole in the bucket that he'd made, and it worked a treat, and he was very pleased with it, and he wrote to me to tell me what he'd done. Well, that's all very good, but it made me think, maybe others might want to do the same. So I designed this little gadget which I'll make available. This looks like a thermostat housing off of a motor car, but it's basically designed, you would cut a hole in a bucket, stick this through, there's a couple of bits there so you could glue it down or bolt it on, and this will perform exactly the same function as the original collector head. So that's good. The other thing that people have been asking for is an N-gauge version of the device. So Where did I put my other one? Oh, here we go. This is the standard sort of 00 gauge version, and here's an N gauge one, and I've put an N on it. N for nice. This is quite nice actually. There's quite an interesting detail going on inside here. So this is now available. That is to say, I need to put it on the website. I'll do that in the next day or so. But the N gauge one is there and done. Now, in one of my prototyping videos a while back, I showed this, and this was an idea that, let's imagine we've collected all of our excess ballast and it's gone into this bottle. The idea was that you would screw this top on and this becomes like a spreader, so we could run that along the track and that would lay the ballast out sort of crudely, ready for vacuuming up with the actual device thing. Well, that sort of worked, but I wanted to refine it a little bit. I finally got around to refining it, and here is the refinement. This is quite a nice little piece actually. There's some interesting things going on inside it, and there we go. Now, I'm really grateful to my partner Karen, who's been helping post all these things out and dealing with the orders and stuff, and she calls this the Ballast Buster. So this component now has the legend Ballast Buster written on it. So this is available for anyone who's interested. Now, my apologies if all of this seems like a shameless advertisement. I don't mean it to come across that way at all. But when I first showed the idea, it was clear there was a lot of demand for it, and so I thought, well, I need to be businesslike in my approach to making it available. And what we've got here is the folder in which we keep records of all of the units that have gone out and been sold and what have you, and this has been great fun looking at where everyone lives. And one day I'm going to create a little map with pins in, but I think there's at least one of these in every county in the UK at the moment and all over the place, and every time an order comes in, Karen and I enjoy sort of seeing where it's going and thinking about sort of the area if we know it and stuff. So that's been really great. So I've been keeping very good records, which of course is necessary. Now this, although I've been trying to be business-like about it, this is not, in my mind, a business. I don't really make my money with this. This was really, I thought, well, I wonder if I could kind of market this idea and buy a better lens for my camera. That was really the sole reason behind it. But it's been necessary, obviously, as far as the taxman is concerned. This is a business, so I've had to keep good records, and we keep records of all the postage records, so if there was a problem, we've got the tracking numbers and what have you. Anyway, it does become clear when one looks through all of this and one thinks of it in a business-like manner that it's not the world's best business. I have an online shop with one product in it, and of course that all costs money and credit card transactions and everything else. So as a business, it's really not the best. So it's made me think, how could I sort of get some better value out of the fact that I have effectively set up a business which I think by the time an accountant is paid, it's not going to have made any money at all. So I'm going to take you to my workbench and I'll show you a couple of things I've been working on. So here's a view you've not seen before. This is my workbench, and you can see I've been doing all sorts of little bits and pieces on here. Over the last couple of weeks I've been working on some carriages for Bexhill West. So we've got a bird cage set going together. These are Roxy Mouldings kits, and they're really brilliant. I've enjoyed putting these together very much. And I've got the first of two push-pull sets that are going to go together. Here's a postcard actually of what I'm making. This is at Crowhurst Station. Anyway, let's not talk about those for now. Oh yes, that's why I mention it, is in building these things, they don't come with any interior, so I've designed a set of first, second and third class seating to go in these things, and I thought, well, why don't I stick those on my online shop? You know, that's something else to sell, what people might be interested in, and that might help offset some of the costs of running the shop. So really, I'm mentioning this because I'm saying I'm going to broaden the product range on the online shop. Not because as I say, I'm not trying to run a business for the sake of running a business and retiring off of it or anything, but I do want it to sort of wash its face, so to speak. So if I'm designing stuff, why not stick it on there? Okay, but the main reason for pulling you over here was to show you something that I think you might be interested in, and I'll begin by showing you this little signal. Now this has been built from a kit. Let me zoom in and I'll show you what it's all about. So then, this is a little signal that I put together from a model signal engineering kit, and it's quite nice. I quite like it. It all works, and this will be controlled, I think, from a servo. So there we go. This linkage hasn't been finally fitted. In fact, I've connected it in the wrong place on here, but anyway, it all works, and I'm quite pleased with it. Except the etch for the mast, what do you call it? Is it a post? I suppose, yeah, the post is, it's not as accurate as it could be, so I'm thinking I might redo this. But anyway, I've made this as a prototype because I want to test the servo control mechanism, because I think I'm going to use servos to control this and the turnouts at Bexhill West, and I want to figure that mechanism out before I finally fit the turnouts. So that's one signal that I've made, and I was working on another one. Now I'll show, this is a Southeastern and Chatham Railway ground signal kit, and I must admit I've been a little bit disappointed with this. Let me explain why. The kit itself is quite nice, and we've got the little parts here. They're very small, that make up the sort of the pedestal that this ground signal sits on, and there's an etch for the arm itself. Now I bet I won't be able to get this to focus. Let me try. Let's see if I can do it this way around. Now the problem I have with this is that the signal arms on this etch, they're not quite right, and they certainly don't match either the drawing on the packet that they came in or photographs of the real thing. So I thought, well, I'm going to have to make a new arm for it. And there's one or two other little details that I wasn't so pleased with, so I thought, well, could I just make a new signal post? So that's what I've been doing, and then it was in doing these two little side projects which led me to something else that I think might be of interest. Now I'm not sure how well this is going to show up on the camera, but what I've got here is a set of signal lamps. Now these are London Southwestern Railway type of signal lamp, which would match that signal post that I've made previously. And I've got some drawings and I've copied those precisely, and hopefully you could see in this one on the far right there is a lens. Now that lens has been made from a little piece of fibre optic cable, and I can attach an LED to it and make it light up. So I'll show a picture of it sort of glowing. I won't do it with this camera because it'll it's not as good, but if I get a picture with my iPhone in the dark, you should see that it's quite effective. Anyway, that was one development, but it brought me to thinking about the ground signal, and could I produce one of those? And well, I have. So let's replace this with something else. So this is the ground signal. Now I anticipate making an etched brass signal arm. Hang on, let's get that to focus steadily. There we go. So here's the signal arm, and you should see, if I slide this out of the way, I don't know if you can see, but we've got our fibre optic lens behind there, and this will be connected to a little servo and will operate. Now I've made this little print, this little selection of things with some 3D printed arms, and they're okay, but I think brass would be a little bit finer. but I just made these so that I could test it out. But this works quite well too, and it's really quite bright when we stick some light through it. So again, I'll show you a picture of this illuminated, and you'll see what I mean. Now, whilst I was doing all of this, I was reminded that my father had several of these. This is an Adlake lamp. I'm not sure which number it is. Anyway, it's a gas-powered lamp, and this came from Purley Station. He had a yard next door, and when these were ripped out in, I believe, the late 80s, mid to late 80s, he sort of rescued them from the scrap. Anyway, I've measured this up, and so we now have a Stevens & Co. lamp, the Adlake lamp, and the Southeastern Chatham Railway ground signal lamps all drawn up, and those will become available as a little 3D printed kit of parts with the fibre optic cable and the LEDs, and they'll go on the website very soon. And so that's it for now. Apologies for this episode being a sort of a shameless advertisement, but I wanted to put some of that information out there and thought it's probably best in a video of its own. Now, there's lots more making material to come, and I'm looking forward to getting those videos out. I'll just finish now with some images, some footage taken by that viewer I mentioned earlier, Brian. Brian was so pleased with the results that he'd achieved that he sent me some video clips. So what you see on the screen now is some stuff that Brian captured whilst using the tool on his own model, and he commented that he achieved in a couple of hours something that he thought might take him a couple of weeks. So I'm really grateful to Brian for sending this to me. And to everybody else, thank you very much. It's been a good year on the channel. I wish you all a bright and successful year ahead. So thanks for watching, thanks for staying subscribed, and I'll see you soon. Cheerio.